One, I have Dada. Let me see if I can get him. He's such a cutie, you know. I wanted to make sure that everybody got a good look at him today. He was being especially cute. So I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to bring him in. Everybody likes to see the cute animals and Dada. So there he is. Joji's up on one of my shelves. I have to keep an eye on her too because she's watching my fruit. Here comes my sound quality check. So, in any case, yes, as I said, I have Joji and Dada here today. And Joji is right over my fruit bowl. I have some, raspberries and blackberries and my little morning drink, but she likes to pop them out of the bowl, She likes to toss them out of the bowl and then, chase them around. And then I did catch her one time breaking open one of the berries to taste it. So cats will do anything. They're very entertaining, of course, but you have to watch them because they don't know what they're supposed to be entertaining with all the time. So in any case, as I said, when I saw Dada, I said, okay, this time I have to bring him in. And I know, Betsy, I know other people like to see the cats. So I like cats. I like all the animals and creatures, of course, but cats are a little easier to maintain than, say, dogs, even though I like dogs too. But cats, they'll come and, they're just a little cleaner. So, in any case, welcome again to another Day Text. I'm Greg Stafford, and we meet every weekday morning, unless otherwise scheduled, at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that we can talk about different historical texts, accounts, primarily from the Bible, but we also consider other related literature and histories so that we can better our understanding of events from the past and use them today in our lives. And so we have people from all around the world that meet, and I call them day texts because I'm meeting at the start of my day, but you can use them, as you know, at any time. And so we try to present useful information based on text groupings and then make an application based on that text grouping to our lives today. And we also start out the discussion of each book or letter that we review with some historical information about the letter or document's historical context and literary transmission. So you can always go back to the first video in any series on a book or letter that we day text about and find more information in the first video of that document or letter. I was thinking the other day too, because I was putting down on a forum some of my hobbies and habits. And I started thinking, well, I day text. I wonder if I would they understand, could I put down I'm a day texter? They said, well, what is that? Well, we put these verse groupings together, we read them, and then we apply them, and we do it every day. Day text. So anyway, that might be a way I can start to talk to people. Just whenever I'm asked, what do you do for, what do you like to do for a living? I day text, among other things, So start a conversation maybe that way. Okay, let's get to the letter of Hebrews, and then I have an announcement for this Saturday. You don't want to miss it, so I'll save that for the end. But let's get to the day text here. We're in Hebrews chapter 11. And we've been talking a little bit about what faith is. And in our last show or two, we highlighted selections from Hebrews chapter 11. And we talked about how faith is never something absent good reasons or evidence. It's never just this hope that something is true or belief absent good reasons. It's never that. Never in the Bible will you read an example, and we're going to read about several today, where somebody acted out of faith but didn't have good reasons to do what they did. They didn't have to necessarily know for sure, but they had good reasons, and they had good enough reasons to act versus not to act. Okay, and so then I say that because today often you will hear this contrast between religion and science, as if religion is based on faith, i.e. no evidence, and science is based on evidence. So It's all flipped because science doesn't even use science. They use science fiction, or when they do actually perform a scientific experiment like Miller-Urey, they don't include the primary agents of the experiment themselves, which would in our view be the equivalent of God in the greater context in which the quote-unquote experiment of creation was done. So it's not the case where faith does not have reasons and science does. It's the opposite. Science today, real science has reasons, but the kind of science that's being promoted is really just science fiction. There's no evidence for evolution. There's no evidence for time travel. Yet they continue to promote these ideas as if they're legitimate and based on actual science. They're just theories that quote-unquote smart people have put out there as alternatives to what really takes place and that we can show takes place scientifically. Like life always coming from existing life versus life coming from something that's not alive. That never happens. Yet people believe that's how life came about. So, in any case, our view of faith is evidence-based 100%. It's never the case that we have faith and no evidence. That should never be the case. Your quality of evidence may vary, but you always search for the best evidence, right? Who doesn't want the best evidence? So you should constantly be looking for that to inform your faith. All right, let's get to the text. We're going to read Hebrews 11, 7 through 12. I just wanted to mention that as sort of a prelude to these texts based on our last text grouping so that we kind of have a good idea of faith going into it. Okay, I'm going to read it straight through. Verse 7, Hebrews chapter 11. With faith, after being warned about things not yet seen, Noah was motivated to build a box ship for the salvation of his house, by means of which he condemned the world, even as he became an heir of the righteousness that is because of faith. Verse 8. With faith, after being summoned, Abraham agreed to go into a place which in the future he was to receive as an inheritance. But Abraham went there, not understanding where he was going. We're going to come back to these texts. Verse 9. With faith, Abraham lived temporarily in the land of promise, as a foreigner who lived in tents, putting him in company with Isaac and Jacob, joint heirs of the same promise. Verse 10. Indeed, Abraham was looking forward to the city possessing foundation stones, of which city God is the designer and builder. Verse 11. With faith, even Sarah, Abraham's wife, a woman unable to bear children, received power to produce a seed even at the time of her mature age, because she regarded the promise as trustworthy. Verse 12, last verse. So then, from one man came to be born children like the stars of heaven in their population, innumerable, even as the sand along the edge of the sea. These all came to be from Abraham, previously known as Avram, who was also near death. I've talked a little bit about Abraham in various videos because of his importance, being from the land of Ur in Mesopotamia, a city discovered last century, but which for thousands of years the Bible described as existing, whereas other people had no idea what was going on. So once again, the Bible has been proven to document accurate locations and people in history. But you notice, going back to Noah, before we return to Abraham, it says in verse 7, he was motivated to build a box ship. And of course, the exact dimensions and size of the ship are described in Genesis. And we have evidence of the flood, including Noah's Ark, including anchor stones and pieces of the Ark in the area of Mount Ararat in Turkey, that give us evidence of what took place. But you notice Noah did not yet see the flood, so he acted out of faith based on things not yet seen, but he had been warned by Jah. Jah came to him even as the sons of God were interacting with other humans at the time on that earth, building places like the Yonaguni Monument, Lake Titicaca, the city at the bottom of it, and in other locations that today have been destroyed or that are no longer what they once were before the flood. But Noah did not yet have evidence beyond Jah coming to him and saying, look, the earth has now become full of violence in ways that I'm not going to tolerate. So the presence of Jah is an evidence. Is when you know there's no confusion in the account of about who was that talked to Noah. In the same way, who's the one who spoke to Abraham. There's no confusion on the part of these people to question them. Sometimes people do question because they're not sure based on their condition or the context from which they come to Jah, like Moses. Remember in Exodus 3, he's talking to Jah, he knows it's Jah, but he had just come out of the land of Egypt. He's being asked to go back to the land of Egypt. So it was a little more difficult for him to put into context the things happening. Versus people like Noah and Abraham responded more readily because they didn't have the difficulty of having to go back to Egypt and do these various things. So each person in their involvement with Jah should be evaluated based on the context. And in Noah's case, when Jah came to him and told him what was going to happen, that was enough. And that was enough evidence for him to proceed. And remember, he had 40 years at least to build the ark, gather the animals, and prepare for Jah's flood. Back then, they lived longer, they were bigger. Look at the things that they were building before the flood that we have remnants of. So the kind of ark that they could build would have been incredible, and just like we see described in the Bible. So let's move to Abraham and Sarah now, individuals that lived after Noah, but to whom Jah made promises. Jah promised Abraham that he would make his seed innumerable like the stars and the sand of the sea, just like the author of Hebrews quotes here. He's quoting from Genesis, the promise that Jah made. So Abraham was chosen by Jah to be the one through whom he would bring his son, as he was preparing the body of the seed foretold in Eden that would restore the earth to what we were originally given. That's why Jesus is called the last Adam, because he came to undo what Adam did. And so Abraham responded to these promises not because he had no evidence. He had Jah once again appearing and speaking to him, telling him these things, and manipulating various events to fulfill his promise. So Abraham did not fully understand what was going on, but he knew that Jah was promising him something that would be from him. As the text says in verse 10, a city, the designer of which is God. And we view that as the future New Jerusalem, or the heavenly city that Jah will use to restore the earth. And we believe this is also what Abraham was looking forward to, the new heavens and the new earth that we're promised in texts like Isaiah and in Peter and in Revelation. So he acted on those promises and followed Jah's will. Same with Sarah. Even though we know at one point Sarah was, she was doubting because she was an older woman. So when Jah told her that, made the promise to Abraham that he would have a seed, it wasn't immediately something she could believe in based on the evidence, right? Because the evidence to her was her reproductive ability. But who controls that? So you can understand why she was doubting, even though the angel or Jah, I believe the angel of Jah was there acting as Jah, which the angels do who serve him. That's something that they were more familiar with based on Abraham's involvement with Jah and his angels. But again, the evidence of her age and her ability to reproduce made her at one point laugh. But yet, eventually, the evidence became apparent to her that she would, in fact, be able to bear a child. So she had faith based on that promise and proceeded to bear children, even though she was an older woman. So she did not continue to doubt what was taking place with her. Once she realized that Jah was going to override what would normally be a period in her life where she could not produce children. Jah can do anything he wants. That doesn't mean he's going to continuously override the norms and ways that we should hope for. What we should do is serve Jah in ways that these people did. Like Noah, Abraham, and Sarah. If we are given information that shows us what we should do, then we should do it. We may not all get the same uh, directive, to build a box ship, or that we'll be the one through whom Jah will make a seed as numerous as the stars of heaven, or that we'll be able to reproduce at what we consider an old age. We don't need to be given those kinds of promises. As long as we have the promise of life, being able to serve Jah with joy, and getting along with other people to the extent that we can, now and in the future, that's, to me, enough to act upon based according to the evidence that I have, both historically as it relates to the Bible and the events of humankind, and presently as it involves the earth, the universe, ourselves, and all living creatures that demonstrate intelligence and that show that life could only have come from pre-existing life, or already existing life. And so these are the things that we can use to motivate us to love and find works and to believe in the things that Jah has promised us in the future. So that pretty much takes care of today's text. Again, based on faith. Faith has to have evidence, or really you shouldn't have faith because you only have what could be hope. But to have faith, you have to actually have some reason to believe. You don't have to have a huge list or a vast understanding of every single thing that could potentially be related to the subject. We just need to have enough information to make a decision. Just like we do when we get into our car and drive each day. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have enough information to be pretty sure, or at least convinced enough to take our life in our own hands every single day. So I suggest that we do the same thing for Jah. We're already taking our lives into our own hands for things like driving every day. So what better place to put your life than in Jah's hands every single day, based on the evidence and the promises that we have. So keep that in mind. I hope it encourages you and gives you some examples from history to use when the subject of faith comes up. You can use every single person named in Hebrews chapter 11 to show people what faith really involves. Okay, so that's today's day text, and I just wanted to make a couple comments about tomorrow. Now, I've been talking and promising about the Ancient Aliens episode, and that is coming. It's just taking me longer to finish because I'm very busy with work right now, and I'm also busy with other writing projects. So putting together the Ancient Alien series has not been simple because it takes time, and I have to arrange the clips that I want to use for the show, whereas for other videos like this one or open session, I don't have to have as much planning. And the Ancient Alien subject itself, it's different from, say, a subject like I am, or the texts involving the phrase I am. That, I know, and I already have all the information. I pretty much just organize it and present it. But for the Ancient Aliens episode, even though I know the information well, I have to organize it in order to present it the right way. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is open session 2. So I would encourage you to have your questions, any questions you want, but if you're going to post one, try to post it more than once. You don't have to keep posting it, but if you can tell that I may have scrolled past it and I might have missed it, then just post it again. I'll take another look, and I do the best I can to see what's going on. But we're going to do another open session, and then I should be ready by next Saturday for the Ancient Aliens, the start of that Ancient Alien CW Jah Talk series. It'll be more than one, but that'll be the first one. So I'm close. I'm not ready enough to do that show tomorrow. And I have other things I still need to spend time on this weekend. So open session just works best for me tomorrow. And that's what I'm going to do. So we'll do open session 2 tomorrow at 8:30. We'll answer whatever questions are presented in the chat or in other means before then, if you want to send me a message. and we'll discuss whatever's on your mind or as it relates to current subjects, topics, areas of interest that any of you have. We will give it some time. So we have that to look forward to, and I look forward to joining you all again next Monday as we continue our way through the letter to the Hebrews in our day texts. So until then, and until tomorrow, I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and try to join me tomorrow for open session. You never know what could happen. Last time we talked about the surface of the earth, and we were able to put a video out there that kind of contained what I essentially believe is the image in which Jah left the earth. But it's something for you to look at. It wasn't what I had planned to discuss, so it just came up. That's the beauty of open session, is we never know, right? It's open session. So let's see what comes up, and if it's something we can productively discuss that's appropriate and not rude or something that would be offensive to anybody, then we're going to talk about it. And so I look forward to that. Until then, all of you have a wonderful Friday, and may Jah bless you in Jesus' name.